Hello, everyone. This is Pat Neary. I'm running this webinar from our offices just outside of London in the UK, and I'm watching sort of our attendees list sort of tick up here. So hopefully you're all seeing my screen and you're seeing me for the minute. I'm gonna turn myself off so you won't have to see me in the corner speaking through the presentation. But welcome. Thanks for joining. We'll get started here in a minute. I'll give it another minute or two, and then we'll launch into the presentation itself. I'll turn off my camera right now. Very good. I'm still seeing the attendee number tick up, so I'm going to hold on for another minute or two, or another minute, a few seconds here, see what the numbers slow down. It's happily it's creeping up. Great. And it's just gone 2 minutes past the hour, so I'm going to start now. I'll formally welcome everyone now, and I'll remind you as well that this session is being recorded, and that there is a chat box, question box, over on the right-hand side in the console, that you can use should you, want to make comments, or ask questions. Whilst I'm presenting, I won't look at those necessarily, but as we wrap up, I do have, I intend to give us some time to do questions and answers, and I'll kind of scan, the chat box and the question box and speak to the items, any of the items that are raised there. But welcome. Thanks for taking time out of your day to hear and look at what we've got to say about the value of test automation. The plan, if I can roll forward here. There we go. The plan is to take you through a number of slides where we cover sort of the functional testing opportunity, dive a bit deeper into the value of test automation, talk a little bit about DWS's testing solution, what we do, how we do it, how it relates to, sort of the opportunity, and, how we release the value, and then, a couple of case study type examples. It's not an interactive session, so I'll do my best to keep things moving and flowing. And I'll encourage and invite anybody that wants to know more, to reach out to me. You found us, to register. You can find us to request a conversation. We'd be more than happy to speak to anybody about about their interest and about their concerns, as it relates to testing and test automation and the like. Just a little bit about DWS as we get into this. We're an Oracle Gold partner. We started our lives as a company, in the late 1990s as a specialist in JD Edwards, and we provided development and technical services to the JD Edwards community for years, and we still do that. But in recent times, we recognize an opportunity to create some intellectual property and create software to help JD Edwards customers test their applications. And at the time, we made sure we developed our solutions to be able to be used with other applications. And in the last year and a bit, we've made the solution that we're talking about today work with the Oracle Cloud applications. We're not a massive company, but we like to think we punch above our weight and have great relationships with our customers. We've got customers all the way around the globe, or all over the globe. tens of customers. I'd be exaggerating if I said hundreds, but we do have a lot of customers all over the world, and we've got staff dotted all over the world as well. A lot of the work we do is remote development, and the guys that you know, look after our product strategy from a testing product perspective, and our development lead, are in different parts of the world. I think most of our developers are in South Africa as it relates to the product. Our lead developers in Portugal, and our product strategy director, I think, is in New Zealand. So it gives you a sense of where we are. So we fit into that systems integrator and software vendor kind of pockets or camps within the JD Edwards and Oracle Cloud Apps community. We're delighted today to be talking to both end customers. When I look down the customer list or the attendee list, it's great that we've got a number of individuals representing companies that are using the Oracle Cloud applications, but we also have representatives from systems integration companies that want to or are thinking about how they can provide better services to the Oracle Cloud Apps community. And we're very partner friendly. We'd love end customers to be using our products and solutions, and we'd like as well to have conversations and see systems integrators using our testing products as a means to deliver great services and testing services to end customers as well. Trying to use the keyboard and it's not quite working. I'm not sure why I'm not being able to move forward. I'll use my mouse. So let's get into the testing opportunity, talk about the testing opportunity. Nowadays, when people talk about applications, there's lots of talk about companies becoming digital enterprises. There's talk about continuous adoption and continuous innovation. We're moving more and more to a world where there's there aren't upgrades, there aren't big transformational changes that you make to your business systems every 2, 3, 5 years. We do things a lot more frequently. Things are happening all the time. From a development delivery perspective, there's commitment, particularly from Oracle. There's a commitment to continuously deliver, and we see that within the Cloud Apps community with the quarterly updates. And I think you guys know that that are on Cloud Apps. You are in control, kind of, sort of. You do have to take updates each quarter, but you can kind of choose where within a quarter that sort of sits, and you have an opportunity to turn on and off feature function and capability as you go through and do a quarterly update. So it's the new normal. Today, when we talk to people, we talk about them running more projects. And what's interesting is, anecdotally, when we talk to people, and we've talked to people for years running, packaged software implementation projects, we've seen, and we have experience of, lots of companies that find testing to be a real problem. And when you dig into that and you kind of, ask them why, there's all sorts of reasons. And then when you try and quantify, the impact of, testing being a challenge, the number's quite high. You can see here that, we've heard from our customers that, as much as 25 to 65% of total time and effort, can be attributed to, can be attributed to testing. Now, we know testing is sort of a broad church. And from a packaged software implementation perspective, we know what sort of unit testing sort of looks like, system testing looks like, integration testing. There's a number of different levels of testing that you need to go through and things that you need to do. And it goes beyond just the team that's implementing the software being happy, you cross over from what you do as a project team and you move into, the user acceptance testing sort of activities as well. So when we think about the opportunity, it spans all of those areas, from, potentially a developer or a business analyst working on a very specific problem or issue, doing some testing all the way through to end-to-end business process processing and user acceptance testing. What we're trying to deliver and what the opportunity is to deliver something that helps make the testing that you do across the entire project and the project, the life cycle of your software better. And it's worth doing because if you look at information that's out in the in the public domain, we keep an eye on what Capgemini are saying. They've for years now they've been producing a world quality report. It's Capgemini Sagenti, that have been producing this report for years. If you've never seen it, it's worth finding and looking at. But they point to the fact that CIOs report that as much as 35% of their overall IT budget, can be attributed to, testing related costs and activities. And it's funny because, one of our big customers in North America, I was having a chat with him over lunch at one point when we were working towards doing a deal. He'd said he'd never really looked at, quality and quality assurance from a budget category perspective as such. But that he'd go away and kind of think about that and look at his numbers. And he's in a $4 or $5 billion organization, and he came back to me and said, actually that's about right. When he ran the numbers, that number was pretty significant, and it's very material when you think about IT spend and budgets. So you're going to get people's attention if you talk about testing and you relate testing to the spend associated with solving the testing problem. When you look at what these companies do and what they report when it comes to software and tools, a lot of that is attributable to the software itself. So you take that 35% and then you take a third of that, and you're sort of looking at 10% of a total budget, might be able to be pointed at, software license tooling and things like that. So it's some good hard evidence, from surveys run by Quality Report. And there are other analysts and folks that are producing information that speak to this subject to help you justify bringing up testing as a subject and asking for budget and securing budget from the powers that be within your organization to solve the testing problem. When we talk about testing, I find it quite interesting, and I've looked at it in a lot of different ways and read a lot of different articles and reports and stuff on the subject. And with packaged software, it's a little bit different than what you see talked about when you're developing mobile applications or a website or some of these other sorts of things. And we're not really developing software when we implement packages. We have a slightly different problem. People that write software, authors, as a stakeholder, when it comes to your Oracle Cloud applications, we'll do tons and tons and tons of testing. And, we're quite close to some of the development organizations at Oracle. And, we know what they do from a testing perspective, and they test software over and over and over again as part of their development processes and, delivery processes and everything else. And we also know that when we think about enterprise applications, and we think about business processes, that users want to test software as well. So looking across the top here, I've got the stakeholder as the author, and another stakeholder is the user or the end customer. We also know that certain applications lend themselves to lend themselves and more naturally can be tested and more thoroughly tested by the author. And things, from a functional perspective that are not transactional, that are standardized and fairly straightforward, albeit maybe flexible and operational, can be tested, by the author. And the risk profile to the end user, is probably lower when you think about things like enterprise performance management, or perhaps Salesforce automation. So long as you're not crossing over to transactional order taking and things like that. There's sort of a shift that takes place when you think about applications. When the applications start to become more transactional, where the software that's being used is highly configured, and where the data that's going through the applications is quite dynamic and important, to the results that you expect from a business perspective. And we're talking about systems that are much more mission critical. So your finance systems, your inventory systems, your order taking systems, your manufacturing systems, are sort of over there on the right hand side. And I always say to people, when you think about functional testing, and you think about quarterly updates, when you think about finance and your finance accounting systems, you think about your inventory systems, you think about your ordering systems, you think about your manufacturing systems, you wouldn't dream of taking an update and not testing that as a user. You just wouldn't, because your data, your business, your transactions, the way you're using the software is that important, and the risk to you guys is really great. So this is a good sort of reference point, as and when you think about the opportunity, to introduce automation and to deliver automation and to get value is quite high. When you think about what I always talk about is sort of core ERP sorts of things. You can get away with letting the author do the testing with some of the other stuff, but our message is is that you do need to test, and you need to test every single quarter. And if you are testing every quarter, you've got to overcome this list, or this is a representative list of the sort of bottlenecks and obstacles that you need to overcome. You need to have thought about or think about what to test, based on what's changing, based on what you do and what's changing. And you not only have to have that sort of your mind, your brain, sort of covering and addressing and understanding, what needs to be tested. You've got to plan and manage that testing. And you've got to make sure that you've got assets, that'll support the testing. When I talk about assets, I'm building up to wanting to talk about test scripts themselves. And for many people, today, test scripts exist, if they've been documented and established as part of, so part of the resources that you use when running a project. For many, those test scripts are manual. They're Word documents or Excel spreadsheets. Spreadsheets of data and things like that exist. But, we need to overcome, that and get that stuff organized. And we need to get the right people. And, we need to be able to hand over, from, test engineers, programmers, project team members, to end users, for acceptance testing and things like that. And, we need to be thinking about, all the documentation, that supports, our efforts, and satisfies auditors and, any other powers that be that might be, checking the work that we've done, before we might go live with a system. Documentation is really, really, really important. And we need to be set up and ready, to retest. we always, when we demo our software and we talk about scripts, you sort of say, well, how many times do you put an order through through a sales order management system, during a project? It's tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of times. Now, if you're doing that manually every single time, that can take a lot of time. But if you're set up to do things automatically, you can really get some benefits. So that sort of lays the foundation, and kind of helps, starts to talk about the case for, for test automation and what's behind, what can be behind test automation, initiatives and projects. Let's move on now and talk about the value of test automation. Picked, there's a number of, there's lots of resources available, that talk about testing. Not so many are available that talk specifically about, off-the-shelf package testing. And this document, there's a document on 5 commandments for successful COTS package testing, sort of paper that Infosys wrote in 2018, which lays out kind of a picture of, what testing needs to address, when you're thinking about, your package software. They use the terminology of build, which I'm not particularly happy with in that top line, because we're not really building, package software. We're configuring, we're configuring it and implementing it. But if you sort of give that, aside, you put that aside and accept that what we need to build, is fundamental to sort of the testing strategy conversation, and then you need to think about how you're going to validate, whether you've built it right, and then confirm that what you've built is actually, what your users and the business required. So it's interesting, and it's a good idea, as we think about the value of test automation, to think about the value of an automation solution in the context of an overall testing strategy and what you're doing, from a strategic perspective. And as we think about test automation and what automation looks like, feels like, and brings to a strategy, and brings to a project, in terms of value, in the context even of a single project, we highlight, and we like to highlight, 3 really key areas for, where you see value. And the first area is this repeatability. When you think about a strategy that addresses your business requirements, and your needs as an IT organization, you want something that supports repeatability. You want to be able to look at, your testing tools, and see your business and the way you run projects reflected in that tool. And you want to be able to use that pretty easily, consistently, and test, with reliability. So we talk about repeatability as a key value area when we think about test automation. The next area is obviously about risk. And it's interesting, over the years, the vast majority of projects I've been involved in and was involved in earlier in my career, only ever involved manual testing. And we never quite did as much testing as we wanted to, in advance of going live. And oftentimes when we look back and we thought about the quality of the testing that was done, we weren't overly impressed with the jobs that we'd done. And as a consequence, going live probably carried more risk than we would have seen, or would have been exposing ourselves to if we'd been particularly well organized and done more testing, and done that testing, thoroughly, consistently, and accurately. And that's what you get with test automation. you're able to do more testing, you're able to be more thorough with the testing that you're doing, and you're able to ensure and guarantee that the testing that's done, is accurate, and it's reflecting the business that, the business and processes that you're trying to support. Now, the last area, that we tend to highlight, in broad terms when we talk about value is the burden of testing. Very early on, as we looked at solving the testing problem, we did it with a view towards lightening the load. Making sure we were doing a really good job, but making sure the job could be done by the project team, and we could do that job in a better way, spending less time and getting a better result. So these are three really big areas that we sort of hit on and bring forward when we start talking about and highlighting where the value comes from, from introducing a scripting and automation sort of solution. Ultimately, when you're looking at a project and you're looking at testing in the context of a project, a packaged software project, whether it's an implementation for the first time or a quarterly update, we're trying to get and help you guys achieve smaller and faster and smarter projects. And if we can get in the habit of running more projects and doing our projects in a better way, we're setting the stage to to more seamlessly deliver business value to the business, and we can do that quickly. When in the old days when we looked at software projects and we looked at project justification and validation, it was always time to benefit sort of thing. Well, with continuous innovation and continuous delivery, the businesses are becoming more demanding. They're wanting things more often, in a more regular way. And as IT professionals and IT organizations, if we get really good at running smaller, faster, smart projects, and we're staying code current, we're taking all of the updates and doing a good job of delivering the updates, then we're really unlocking value to the, from an overall business perspective. When you think about the value as well, and I'll address this slide. With this slide, I'm sort of almost specifically addressing the systems integrators that are on the call. When you think about the relationship that end customers have with their implementation partners, their systems integrators, their managed service providers. The managed service providers are looking to add value always. They want to achieve a trusted advisor status. And there is benefit to systems integrators in putting a spotlight on testing, because quite frankly, this testing thing crops up all the time. And as a systems integrator, if you can do a good job of speaking to the testing problem, solving the testing problem, you'll make more money. Whether you increase revenues or improve margins, is debatable. But there's an opportunity to do both, and that's not a bad thing for the end customer, because the end customer is getting a better service. They're getting more from the Oracle Cloud application. And what we're doing, by automating testing, and when we talk about the value of automating testing, we can look at that from an end customer perspective, but we can also look at it from a systems integrator's perspective. And from a systems integrator's perspective, you're positioning yourself to have a stronger, longer lasting partnership, because you'll be there, using a good product or solution to provide services on a quarterly basis as updates come through. So our routes to market are involve us going to the end customers and trying to encourage companies that are buying and using Oracle Cloud applications think about testing and to think about using our product to support their testing. But we're also having that same conversation with systems integrators and the people that might want to provide testing as a service to end customers as software as well. So that leads me on, have a look at my clock, at my watch here. That leads me on to wanting to talk a bit more about our solution and what a solution, you know, that recognizes the opportunity and delivers on the value, you know, starts to look like and feel like. So hopefully you can see what I've done there. You know, we talked about the opportunity. We've talked about, you know, what value, you know, is there, you know, for various people, you know, in solving, you know, in addressing the problem opportunity. And now we're going to use our approach, DWS's approach, and our solution sort of as an example of what a good solution looks like. The product that we're talking about specifically is called Dimension Swift Test. We have a suite of products that are available to support our you know, the JD Edwards Enterprise One community. But what we've ported across and made available to work with companies that are on cloud apps is this Dimension Swift Test product. And Swift Test is really all about scripting and automation. You know, it is that you know, it is that repetitive you know, solution to the testing problem and a framework and product that helps us do that. And what we're coming back to is this idea that, you know, our product is helping people deliver smaller, faster, smarter projects. And you know, when you do a manual, you know, when you do an implementation project and you're doing that manually, you know, you're going to sit down with a piece of paper and you're going to plan and prepare your testing, and you're going to get further into the project. And you're going to want to do that testing and document your test results. And as the project progresses, you know, you'll find yourselves having to rerun and document tests over and over and over again. So, you know, more or less, you know, every single project, you know, that, you know, where we isolate and look at just testing as part of a broader project, you know, involves this plan and prepare, you know, document, execute, document, and, you know, re-execute and re-document, you know, creating a pack of evidence, you know, to suggest that, you know, we've done everything we need to do from a testing perspective. And the testing, you know, at the very end, if you will, you know, when that rerun sort of box, you know, sort of has a crossover point where the project team's doing their testing and we get across into the end users wanting to do their acceptance testing. Now, an automated test solution is never going to solve the and address directly the you know, the time, effort, energy that goes into end user acceptance testing, because you want the end users to be hands-on, you know, proving and satisfying for themselves that, you know, the software does what it needs to do and that it's fit for purpose. But, you know, doing a good job of planning, preparing, you know, testing, documenting, you know, can help that transition and save time and effort there. But even, you know, if you do that implementation project and then go on to do an update, you know, you're doing the same thing over and over again. And in the bottom line, you know, with the green boxes, we're trying to depict and show that, you know, with Swift Test, you know, we've got a framework and a platform, you know, that allows us to create and build test scripts. And I'll talk about what that looks like and feels like in a minute, because I do, you know, I'm conscious that we're not going to show and demonstrate software, but I can show you a couple of screenshots and give you a feel for what it kind of looks like and feels like. But we've got this framework, you know, that allows us to compress the amount of time and the energy, you know, that we need to put into the testing, to solving the testing problem, you know, during an implementation, during update projects, you know, and as those projects run over time. And when you think about, you know, when we think about solving the problem, and when we thought about developing a solution, you know, one of our design principles, you know, fundamental design principles, was to make the solution business analyst and super user friendly. You know, we've got lots of experience on projects, and, you know, we know that the people that are best placed, to do the testing and to say what needs to be tested are probably the people that are hands-on configuring the software and confirming that the software actually is supposed to be doing what it's supposed to be doing. You don't want to have this handover from business analysts and super users that are configuring and setting up the software to a separate team, that are specialist testers necessarily, because the specialist testers don't know the business. They don't know why the software's been configured the way it is and set up the way it is. So you lose something by doing that. So we really wanted it to be, our solutions to be business analyst and super user friendly, and Swift Test is. We wanted our software to be, in the cloud. We wanted, people, that are using cloud apps to be able, it's cloud-based. We wanted the software solution to be cloud-based. We have to have something that's on the, on a client, to configure and do testing. Yeah, but our client footprint is really, really teeny, super small. So we've got this thin client talking to a cloud-based testing solution, and because it's business analyst and super user friendly, it's really easy to learn. We've created an online learning environment to support users of our software. It's called the iLearn DWS Academy, and people can access that the academy materials, and they can take the training and go through the training at their own pace. And it's hours and days worth of training, not weeks of training. We're available and around, for all of our customers as they work their way up the learning curve. We're providing support, and we do that as part of the subscription fee, just as a matter of course. And our experience continues to be that time to value is a matter of days. When people look at and commit to and start using the software, they're moving very, very quickly through to seeing value. The software itself is not just super user, business analyst and super user friendly. It's what we call application aware. The software has been written specifically for cloud apps. It was specifically written for JD Edwards originally, and our software is actually, aware of, knowledgeable and aware of what happens on a cloud application, on a cloud application screen within a cloud application environment. All of the actions, that you perform as a user of cloud application are known to Dimension Swift Test. That's really, really powerful. If you have configured, moved, changed a screen, we know that's possible, and we pick up all of those changes. So what you do and how you make the software look is picked up by our testing solution and catered for, which is super powerful and super important. Test scripts can be soft coded. We've separated data from the process. You can set up an end-to-end process. And you can repeat those processes by just changing the data, and you can get different results because the data is different. So you can do a lot of really cool things with some of the more advanced capabilities of the software. Test. We have a really good story where one of our European customers was doing a finance implementation, and they created a test pack, and then they created 28 different sets of data to test 28 different tax entities and authorities across all of Europe. So you can be quite smart and clever and achieve really, 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 really cool things with the features and functions that we built into the software. Now, I said I wouldn't demonstrate the software. But I did want to show you guys, some of the stuff that, some of what the software looks like. We have a dashboard that's available via the cloud. We call it our cloud instance of Swift, of our products, the Dimension Hub. And Swift Test is available to cloud applications users, and we summarize and play back via the cloud, and can show people people can see via the cloud, what testing's been done. And this is a chart of all the tests that have been done, from date to date, over time. The red reflects failures, the greens are successes and things like that. And we've got this dashboard that you can look at via the hub, and that includes an action center, all of your projects, the executions of the tests, and what have you. When you're working with the software at the client level, it's really important to understand that we're creating action-based scripts. So on the right-hand side, are individual actions that exist as steps in their own right, and they are maintainable. They can be changed, moved, and deleted, as you see fit. And each one of those steps, sits in, what we encourage is to be granular, very small, granular sort of tests. And on the left-hand side, in the structure over on the left-hand side, you can see that this script that we're looking at here is an order to cache standard to stock item script, that's being done as part of a testing, project, for Oracle Cloud applications. And that testing project is part of a project, or is a project. So we've got projects and scenarios and scripts, with scripts created at action level and maintainable at action level. And this is really, really important, because where a lot of systems fall down, testing systems fall down, if you're recording and playing, scripts, is that they're difficult to change and maintain and look after. And we don't have that problem. We've designed our solutions to, with a view to making sure that, those business analysts and super users that you want to be doing the testing in the context of an application, package application project implementation, can actually own the testing and do the testing themselves. And we've seen, test execution savings up to 60%, and, the sort of creation and maintenance savings associated with, creating and building, what needs to be done from an automated perspective as part of an overall strategy, savings of up to 70%. So let's talk about a couple of case studies and then get into questions. We have a very sophisticated and mature customer in Scandinavia that's using Swift test to support, their pharmaceutical validation kind of requirements. We do the first part of 3 phases of testing and validation that they need to go through. They use Swift test to implement a governance model, and to script and automate their testing, and they got really, really good results. Not only did they get good results during the project, they do 2 weekly package builds and updates of their production environment, and they're using Swift test as part of that 2 weekly process. So in the past, they used to have people on site every other weekend, doing testing. All of that's been automated now. And they're actually running, they're using our API to, to automate the testing as part of a, weekly jobs. So, that's a very good example of a sophisticated company, doing work there. Another example that I would reference is, Lee and Fung, which is a distribution supply chain type company. It's headquartered out in Hong Kong, operations all over the world. They've adopted Swift test and, cut project time in half across, the testing, by as much as half across all of the, their rollout across 350 locations. So there's tremendous savings and, very, very, very good story. And we've got a whole range of stories that we could pull out, but I've only pulled out a couple here. And I'm conscious of time, and I want us to answer a couple of questions. So I'll wrap up and just remind everybody that when we think about the value of test automation, our message is to encourage people to test smart. improve the quality of the testing that you do on all your projects, accelerate the pace of that which you do testing, and ease the burden on on the projects teams, on the end users and the consultants, and ultimately get to a point where you've got smaller, faster projects. So with that, I'm going to open up my console, and see what questions have come through. There's a few things out here. Let me just double check. And thanks for your continued attendance and attendance during the session. Yeah, there's a question about our commercial model. We make the software available as a service. We're basically selling a subscription per hands-on tester. So it's a named user license, subscription per user. And we've intentionally priced the software to be quite attractive. It's the starting price for a user of Swift-Test is $5,000 per annum. And most of our customers, to take advantage of all of the capability of the software, will have 5 or more test users set up with us, and they will pay us annually to use the software, and then that software agreement just renews year after year after year. Another question concerns the underlying technology. To use Swift-Test, you have to have a Windows. You have to have a Windows client. You do have to install that small client software application, but that client application talks to your instance of the Oracle Cloud applications, and at the same time is speaking to the Dimension Hub, where Swift-Test is in the hub, keeping track and recording and making available all of the testing that's being done by all of the clients across your organization. That's answer to a couple of the questions that have come through. Just scan and see if I've missed anything that's not similar to that. No, I think that's it. There's one more here. I'm having trouble reading that. Bear with me 1 second. No, I think that's it, guys. Let me just double check. I think that's the end of that's the questions that we have. Thank you very much for your interest, your attention, and do please come through to me directly with questions or requests to have further conversations. We'll mobilize resource from our side to service your interest and answer any specific questions that you might have as a result of this. But for now, I'll say thank you very much, and I'll sign off.